Have you ever felt stuck in your growth journey, wondering how to build resilience in the face of challenges?
Or maybe you're looking to shift your mindset and unlock your full potential.
Well, if you said yes, then you are in the right place.
Welcome to the Stretch Zone. I'm Hannah.
And I am Feds.
And here we explore self-development, nurture resilience, and embrace the mindset shifts that help you grow beyond your limits. Hello and welcome, listeners. Hello and welcome, Feds. How are you doing today?
Hi, Hannah. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, thank you. It is chilly McBilly here in Atlanta. We've even had our first bout of snow. And it really, yeah, like properly snowed. And in fact, we didn't believe it was going to snow as much as it did. We couldn't even go to the supermarket.
Oh, gosh.
Closed.
Oh, gosh. Everything stopped.
We were very foolish. We didn't realize that it would actually snow like properly. And Atlanta's a bit like the UK. It doesn't happen frequently. So they aren't super prepared for it. Although I did see a snowplow, which is probably better than the UK. But they don't have all of the sort of gear to be prepared for it. So the city actually shuts down. You couldn't even go on the freeway. So we learned a good lesson. Next time to believe it. When there's a snowstorm coming, it actually means there's a
Get ready. Yeah, exactly. Here as well, it's freezing. Woke up this morning was -3. So yeah, I think we're all in a very good place with the temperatures this winter. So
yeah, it is chilly. It is chilly. I'm not saying I'm ready for summer yet, but
oh, I am. I am so ready for summer. I am so ready for summer. But you know what? Like, this year is going to be a different summer because it's not going to be a British summer. It's going to be an Italian summer.
And what does an Italian summer mean to you?
Well, back in the days, it was definitely a lot of sunshine, going to the swimming pool, a Lido, and meeting friends, get ice cream. You know, it was like a very lighthearted and fun summer, but season. But I don't know exactly what to expect.
An adult summer with your husband.
Yeah, who's allergic to mosquitoes. So there's a lot of
you're going to say allergic to the sun.
Well, he's allergic to SPF, so if that doesn't help either. So I am a little bit fearful, I would say, of the summer.
Fearful. And funnily enough, our subject today is all about overcoming the fear of the unknown.
Exactly.
Something that we've had to push ourselves through quite frequently, I would say. But let me just tell you, listeners, it isn't that we have no fear. The fact that we have lived in all these places, changed our sort of starting point so many times, does not mean we do not live with fear. We absolutely do.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like there are different ways of experiencing the fear. There are different ways of feeling about the unknown. And by definition, the fear of the unknown is a common experience that humankind has brought, towards the future. We've always had this thing that accompanies us. It's something that we must have. We need to be a little bit scared of the unknown, because otherwise we would just jump into weird situations, dangerous situations, without knowing exactly what to do. Sometimes it could become extreme, and we don't really want to get there, but it could be a little bit challenging to manage in some situations. And sometimes, of course, we can also have a fear of the unknown in our everyday life. And if we don't know how to manage it, then it could create anxiety. And so that's when we start seeing conditions that can be a little bit more serious. So fear of the unknown, it's good if it's managed properly, if it's used with purpose. And I think it's important, as I mentioned, to highlight that different people have different ideas of what unknown is. What is unknown to me may be absolutely familiar to someone else. So, and even throughout your life, you could experience a different kind of unknown. Like summer, just to take this as an example, was very familiar to me here back in the days. But because this is the first summer I am going to experience here, I don't know exactly what to expect. I know that there's going to be a lot of disruptions. August in Italy is, well, nothing happens really, everything's closed. So that's going to be a weird one. It's going to be incredibly hot. It's just a lot of different things that I'm really not used to anymore.
Yeah.
And it's important to acknowledge that, because when people say, "Oh, but you grew up here, you should know exactly what to expect," and I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm not. Now I'm not the person I was 15 years ago, 17 years ago. I am not alone anymore. There's another person next to me that's probably as worried as I am." So it's important to notice all of these different elements, and also how often the fear of the unknown is connected to big changes, big decisions, moments in our life where we don't know exactly how things might unfold, but as well as it's connected also to small changes, smaller, like in this case for me, this is definitely a smaller change. It's not a major
Yeah.
aspect of my life.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
important to acknowledge that, because fundamentally the way we approach both kind of unknown, it's the same
Yeah.
really. It's just
Yes.
how we approach it. And we're definitely going to talk a little bit about how growing experience has an impact on what we define as unknown, and how it impacts as well our decision making process,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
if we are scared of something, we need to consider a lot of different factors when we make a decision.
Yeah,
So
that's really important to note that in terms of decision making. I think that's really useful kind of point to concentrate on there, that it
mhm.
changes the way that we behave. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
it is definitely something that we can learn how to manage. It is something that we can overcome. There is a scientific background to this one, which
Yeah, which actually you've touched on already. So,
yeah.
if you go back thousands of years ago, and you were saying that actually that is a good thing to have the fear of the unknown. Otherwise, we'd just be putting our hands in fire. We'd be jumping in water and not really swimming, and we'd drown, and we'd just do silly things if there wasn't, a bit of a fear factor. So fear is there to protect us, right? And
Mhm.
it's really rooted in our survival stuff. So if you're going to go back to hunter-gatherer days, fearing that saber-toothed tiger is probably going to save your life. If you just think, oh, hey, little kitty, kitty, you're going to die, right?
Mhm.
So scientifically, the part of the brain is called the amygdala that switches on, and that is our control center for the fear, or detecting threats, I should say. And we were also talking about how it affects decision making. So the sort of the we could talk about that in a cognitive bias. So for some people, you might be sort of averse to loss, and it could be that we fear losing something rather than, so you hold on really tightly to something. This fear
Mhm.
of losing something in your life is
Mhm.
a type of fear
Mhm.
we live with. Um, Maybe you stay in that relationship far too long because you fear all the things that can come with losing that person. Still might not be the
Mhm.
right thing to stay in that relationship, but you know that immediately after losing that person, your life might change. You might have to move, you might have to change your job, you might have to do whatever happens, in that time. And then also, there's a fear around things have happened already to us in the past that confirm that fear that I have. So
Mhm.
every time I do this thing, this bad thing happens. So I will stop doing this thing. And I'm
Mhm.
trying to think of an example right now where that could happen. I guess every time I drive to the airport from my house in Atlanta,
Mhm.
I see a car crash. happen in front of me, or at least a beaten up car that's had a
Every time.
every single time. I'd say it's probably 99% of the time that I have driven.
Sounds a lot like Florida. Yeah, I
Oh
can
yes.
relate to that.
I have been driving for many years. I've ridden a motorbike for 3 years, or a scooter for 3 years in Ho Chi Minh City, and I am now driving on the other side of the road. I'm capable of doing this, but
Yeah.
I have to kind of psych myself up a little bit every
Yeah.
time that I drive to the airport, because I
Mm-hmm.
know something bad could happen. So
Mm-hmm.
there's this sort of, when we first moved here, was like, I'm not taking you. And when it snowed the other day, I unfortunately had to make my husband take an Uber that day to the airport, because I was not going to drive in those conditions. I
Yeah.
have had an accident. My one accident I've had in the UK was in the snow. So, I have this fear around that. And it's the
Mm-hmm.
worry that it could happen again. So we've got
Yeah.
confirmation of something bad's happened before. So it's either the fear of, I don't know what could happen, or
Yeah.
actually this has happened before and I'm damn
Yeah.
right um, should feel this fear.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And then I'd love to just also talk about how, if you don't mind, my yogi background,
Yeah.
I wanted to bring up how fear isn't just a mental condition, right? Fear is a physical reaction, and we can all relate to this. When you're feeling anxious, which is a type of fear, when you're really afraid of something, take
Mm-hmm.
yourself back to that moment, or even imagine a little mouse in the corner that's terrified. The cat's there in front of it. You can
Mm-hmm.
physically see the shaking in that little mouse. You can
Yeah.
physically feel your heart rate go
Yeah.
faster. You can feel,
Absolutely.
different sensations. Maybe you get a bit clammy or sweaty.
Yeah.
Fear is this physical reaction that we have,
Yeah.
and we can't just ignore it, but there are ways to sort of tap into it and go, I'm experiencing this. And that's probably the first thing to
Mm-hmm.
talk about in terms of managing that fear.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I've certainly talked quite a bit over the years in my teaching of yoga about tuning into that sensation and creating space for it and allowing for it,
Mm-hmm.
so that you can move forwards. And if you don't mind, I'd also like to bring up here just a moment before we talk about our real experiences and how we've navigated them. This is where actually speaking to someone about your fear is a really great moment to sort of
Mm-hmm.
just, so if we've got clients that come to see us, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
A life coach is a really fabulous tool to use when it comes to your fears, and fears of what happens next.
Yeah.
Where do I go with this? Because when you're speaking with a life coach, this is a safe space. And we all have biases, we all have fears, each and every one of us.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just need to get it out to make clarity of it,
Yeah.
so that you're not the only one, or it's
Yep.
just getting it out of your system, acknowledging it, and then, okay, so I have this fear. What's my one step forwards with this fear?
Yeah.
And you and I both definitely deal with this quite as a common theme, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that it's very important when you mention about acknowledging
Mm,
the fact that there is fear. In
mm,
this case, we're talking specifically about fear of the unknown.
mhm,
And it is essential because I suffered from anxiety for many years. And one thing that I have learned is that the more I try to repress how
mhm,
anxious I feel,
mhm,
the worse it's going to get. And so, one of the very first thing that I started learning and that I started applying is, rather than asking myself, why is this happening to me? I
yeah,
don't want to feel like this. I don't want to be anxious. instead of doing that, I started asking myself different kind of questions. So rather than why am I feeling like this, I'm like, what is my body trying to tell me right now? What
Yeah.
do I need right now?
Yeah.
And because oftentimes there is really no reason to why it happens. Like, especially if we are scared of the unknown, we don't know why we are scared. We just are.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, confirmation bias, loss aversion, they are both situations in which, because something happened in the past,
Yeah.
we almost try to predict what is going to happen in the future. So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes.
Because I had an accident in the snow in the UK, I'm gonna be scared every single time I'm going to drive because it will happen again. It might happen again. When in reality, there are so many other situations in which something could happen, you know? So what we tell ourselves, it's extremely important. If we know how to do it, then it's great. But I learned because someone taught me. I didn't just learn how to do it
Yeah.
by myself. And so when you were talking about having a coach who can actually guide you and help you understand what kind of questions should you ask yourself, what kind of thoughts should you remind yourself when you are in this kind of situation, is essential.
Yeah.
Um, so in terms of fear of the unknown, I'm curious
Mm.
about your story.
I- As you were talking there, I was thinking about that first leap when I first went
Mhm.
to Vietnam.
Mhm.
This is over 14 years ago.
Mhm.
I um I remember that I had this dream, this desire. I wanted to be an English teacher overseas, and I'd thought about it for ever since I was at university when I'd gone to. Um, did you go to university in England? I went to a freshers,
Yeah.
yeah, freshers week.
Oh,
So
oh, yeah.
first week in your first year, and lots of
Yeah.
great things happen. But they have fairs, and there's job fairs, and there's clubs, and all sorts of things. They put on lots of different things for that first week, especially for all the fresh newbies, the
Yeah.
fresh, which was us. And I remember walking up to like a stand that was about English teaching as a foreign language, and I clocked that information from then, and was just like, I've got to do that one day. It was either that or go and do a ski season. That was kind of like something I'd always wanted to do, and I just never got to do the ski season, which is maybe when I'm 60. Hey, retired. Can you imagine?
Keep it there. Keep it. Well, yeah, why not?
Keep
Keep
the
it on the
dream alive.
bucket
I've
list.
got to keep
Exactly.
sure that I'm fit and healthy for that one.
Sure.
So anyway, I managed to make the dream happen about English teaching as a foreign language. I guess it was about 6 years after I first thought about it. And it was so scary. I'd never been to Vietnam before. Oh my goodness. I'd never been to Asia. Or had I? Oh, I'd been to Singapore, but that doesn't count.
Mm, yeah, different experience.
Different kind of, different kind of,
Yeah. Different kind of
anyway,
experience.
hang on. I'd been to Thailand. I'm ridiculous. I
Mm.
had been to Thailand. Okay. Yes, I thought I had. Okay. So I had tried something. I wasn't completely ignorant. I had been to Thailand and I'd been there for about a month. So I did kind of know some of what I was letting myself in for. But I knew the only way I was going to get on that plane was if I had a job already
Yeah,
lined up. And for me, that was the thing that allowed me to cope with the fear of the unknown.
yeah,
And hats off to people that are just turning up and figuring
yeah,
it out on the spot. But for me, I knew, okay, that was the step that I needed to get me on that plane,
yeah,
turn up, because I had a job. And they, then found a place for me to stay in that first week. And that's all that they did.
yeah.
I knew where I had to
Well,
go every day for work. But other than that, I then had to figure everything else out myself.
mhm.
But that was the one thing. So I guess I'm just, yeah, realizing there were things that had to be in place for me to step through that fear.
Exactly. And I think that this is like one of the first tips probably that we can start sharing these. And I feel the same because I had a similar situation when I
Yeah.
moved to Florida. And I didn't know exactly what to expect. I had been to Florida before, but it was just on a holiday. I was much younger. I really had to have a good reason to leave London. And
Yeah.
so the very first thing I did, and it was a bit, I think about it now and I'm thinking, what? I just went there for the weekend. I booked a flight. I flew out on a Friday and I came back on Monday. I was like, my jet lag was all over the place. But I had to see what I was putting myself into. But one thing I noticed is that having an idea of what I was putting myself into,
Mm.
it definitely helped.
Okay.
Um, I
Of
know
course,
that
it could
this,
go the other way,
yeah, definitely, definitely. It's
which
a
is
bit of an extreme example in that sense because, of course, then I didn't want to be in the unknown area anymore. And I understand that not everybody can do something like that. But the
yeah.
very first thing I did was I researched the place. I found out where it was, what kind of people lived there, what kind of where I would have worked, um, what was popular in the area. Like I was trying to figure out as many things as possible. And I remember that, of course, this is so stupid, but one of the things that terrified me the most was lizards. Is still lizards. I'm terrified of lizards. And so moving to Florida for me,
Wouldn't like going
I
to
was,
Australia
yeah,
then.
exactly. It sounds so stupid because people would be scared of, I don't know, no healthcare, guns, like all that kind of stuff. And I was terrified and I was like, oh my God, there's going to be lizard everywhere. What am I going to do? And so I remembered that I started sticking pictures of lizards in my office. I asked my colleagues
Wow.
as well. Oh, yeah. I asked my colleagues as well. I was like, hey, can you guys just put random pictures of lizard in random places? So if I,
Really?
yeah, yeah. And so I really
Cool.
tried.
Okay.
I really tried to say, right, I need to get used to this. I know that this is going to be scary. I know that I am scared because I don't know exactly what I'm going to find. So
Yeah.
let's try and have a soft landing when I
Yeah, that's
get
a
to
good way of putting it.
Florida,
Yeah.
you know? And if you cannot fly to a place, it could be also the fear of the unknown in the sense of a feeling.
Yeah.
We could be scared, like you were talking about relationships, right? And how many times has it happened that people stay in relationships for longer? But also the opposite. How many people like someone, but they don't have the guts to just step up and say, hey,
I want to be in this
do you
relationship.
want to go? Yeah, exactly. Do you want to do something? Do you want to spend time together? Do you want to get to know each other? Because they are scared of the unknown. They don't know exactly what is going to happen. And
Mm,
so, as you mentioned, whenever we can, we should definitely try and make the unknown a little bit more known whenever
yeah.
we can.
I think the lesson learned here is that everyone suffers with this. This is an impossible human reaction to get rid of. We all have
Absolutely.
it in some
Hmm.
way or other. And each and every one of us needs something slightly different to feel safe, because it's about safety, which we talk a lot about, but it's this, it's one of those seven human reactions or human things that we need. The Maslow, what is it? The Maslow
The
seven.
pyramid of needs.
There you go. It's like one of the pyramid of needs, right?
Yeah.
And it's about safety again.
Hmm.
So this is something that we are all born with. It's in our
Yeah,
chemistry.
yeah, yeah.
So what I'm hearing here from like our discussion is that we all need to take a pause and start figuring out a couple of steps that just create a little more safety for us. So for you,
Hmm.
it was getting on that plane for just a weekend. Some people would would need longer. For you, it was a weekend and that was going to be enough. For me, it was having that job already secured. And it's going to look slightly different for everybody.
Definitely.
Then that's why, yeah, talking it through with other people, such as a life coach, is really, really useful to just figure out, okay, what are the steps, and take it in my pace. Super fascinating. I love that you talked about putting lizards. Do you know,
Oh my God.
one of my biggest fears was the alligators.
But see, like,
my dog every day when I was there for a month. It was so scary.
yeah, that's true. That is true. But then I also thought, what are the chances of finding an alligator in front of my home?
I was more scared of the alligators in my
But true. No, I mean, realistically,
snakes in Australia.
If you think about it, it makes complete sense. Like my fear is irrational. Like it doesn't really have any meaning whatsoever. But then another thing that also helped me was that when I was scared of what I didn't know, I started focusing on what I knew. And so I tried to shift the focus on something that I could actually control, because I can't control what I don't know, but I can control what I do know.
Yeah.
And so, sticking pictures of lizards around was just one little thing that I did. But I also started thinking about, yes, maybe Florida is not exactly, because of my fear of lizards, is not exactly the best place where to be, but hey, I've always wanted to live in the States, and this is the perfect situation. I mean, this is technically a dream that is coming true, So I really tried to shift my focus on what I knew, and tried to be a little bit more mindful, try and think about what is realistically happening now, and not in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 months, like stopping. I was really trying to stop catastrophizing everything, thinking, oh my God, I'm going to find lizards everywhere. All kind of apocalyptic visions. And it really helped. It really helped. So mindset and talking to someone who can actually put things into perspective, it really is a game changer.
Absolutely. So if we were to sum up some of these into tips, some of the things you were talking about there was educate yourself. So educating yourself to a certain point, because we can also overdo it. But it's really useful to educate yourself about that thing that you have a fear of. And for us, it was moving overseas. And that can hopefully start to reduce some of the fears. Physically going and checking something out and realizing that nothing is permanent. So you're going to pop there for a weekend. You still haven't committed completely yet. That's the first step. But even, when we have moved, most of the time, there is an ability to get out of that situation, not be instantly, but I think it's really useful to remember that nothing is permanent. Nothing is permanent ever.
Nothing. Yeah. I feel that it would probably be a little bit more challenging, because if it's a place, you could easily go and check it out, or at least you can go and they say, right, no, this place is not for me, I want to go back home. But when it comes to a relationship, a change that does not, well, if it doesn't depend on us, then there's not much we can do apart from adjusting to it, pretty much. But when it comes to relationships, as you were mentioning earlier, then I think shifting the mindset from it's definitely going to go wrong to what if it goes well.
I'm going to just tell you a little very mini story of my husband and I when we first got together. I was due to leave Vietnam 3 weeks later. That was my year. I'd planned on moving to France. I'd always wanted to learn French. I've got lots of French friends, and I just don't know how to speak French. So I was going to go and be an English teacher there. My parents were even coming out to travel with me. and we were going to do a bit of traveling for like a 2-week period before I moved home to then move to France, right? I meet my husband 3 weeks before, and on our first date, he said to me, so I know you're moving to France and you're going to go and do that, but I also know you want to be a yoga teacher, because I told him that I was thinking about doing that. And he said, how about you go do your travel, go home, because I was going to some weddings, but you come back here and we see if it works out, and you become a yoga teacher if that's what you want to do. And if it doesn't work out, you can go to France after that. And I went, all right.
And now you're here. Fast forward 10 years later, and now you're here.
And some people would have been horrified, right? And I'll be honest, I didn't tell him instantly. I said, I need my parents to meet you.
Yeah. Support system. We need
That's actually the truth.
System.
I didn't say yes. I said, I'll think about it.
Yeah.
So 3 weeks later, my parents came out, I think. Yes, that's right. And then they were helping me move into my now husband's apartment. So, there was definitely like, oh my goodness, there was fear about it, but there was this idea of, I can change this. If it doesn't work, my plans can move. I will change this. And there was so much fear around it not working out, but it's just like, okay, this is also an opportunity, and let's see what happens.
You know what though, what you were saying earlier about, I know that I can change things. This is another tip, I think. Adapting, learning how to deal with the unknown starts happening only if we allow ourselves the chance to deal with the unknown. Yeah. And a lot of people are so scared of this idea of not knowing what is going to happen that they never really stretch their comfort zone. They always stay in this little cocoon where everything is familiar, where we know exactly what's going to happen. And the problem is that, unfortunately, life will always put us in front of something that is new to us, something that is unknown. And if we don't know how to manage it, then we're going to have to learn the hard way. So
yeah. I think
if you have the chance,
in this like headspace, because I'd been there nearly a year and I'd been doing so many new things and I had grown so much in that first year. I think, it would be interesting if that's, let's say I'd met him on holiday, right? Yeah. A year before. Yeah. I don't think I would have ever have been quite so, it was because I could trust in myself at that point because of the experiences that I'd had.
Exactly. Yeah. And so experience is really, and so this is why probably what I'm trying to say is small steps. Try and start getting used to something that is unknown little by little. You don't have to move to the other side of the world tomorrow to prove that you're not scared of the unknown, which is actually not even the point, because we are scared of the unknown, but you know how to manage that fear. So start from going to that Zumba class that you are terrified of because, I don't know, for whatever reason, you are scared of not being able to dance, not being able to, I don't know, follow what the teacher is saying. But those are the little things that can actually make you get used to this unknown.
Such great advice, Feds, because I also want to point out that was me then, okay? And it doesn't mean that I've just gone stronger and stronger and stronger at just not afraid. Life throws things at us, and it's all of this, right? And previous podcasts I've mentioned how when we first moved here, I was in a very negative headspace. So just saying what you've just said, going to a Zumba class, go for it. At the moment, for me, I'm actually in that space of, goodness me, pushing my comfort zone is something as simple as that, So me saying yes to my husband 14 years ago, it's pretty extreme, it's pretty intense, and I acknowledge that.
Yeah.
It's not that that's who I am all of the time. So
Oh,
it
no.
really is a constant up and down and roller coaster of pushing through those fears.
Yeah. And I think it's also like, as we mentioned at the beginning, what is unknown to us may be completely familiar to someone else. Like a very good friend of mine, she was terrified of going out to restaurants by herself, even just for a tea, right? The idea of sitting down at the table by herself was something completely new to her that she had never done before. And so I told her, and I was like, listen, if you want to try and go, because she kept on talking about it. And I was like, try. If you feel uncomfortable, you can always just stand up and leave. The door is there. You know, no one is going to force you to stay there and sit down. Call me. Do you feel uncomfortable? Do you want to have something to do? Just call me. You know, at least we can be on the phone while you are there. And I think like a combination of all of these different things, it definitely helped. And so we're talking about a person who would leave for 7 months and go to the other side of the world to do a 7 months long yoga course. So she is a badass, you know. But then whatever was unknown to her really, really stopped her. And so I was like, well, try and find little things, small steps that you can take to overcome this fear that you have. So where are we now with our tips? Is there anything else that I can't think of?
This kind of first bit was educate yourself. Small steps just keeps coming up, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Steps, take it in your pace. A support system we've been talking about. Friends, coaches, get people around you, talk about it. You were also mentioning about reframing. So just trying to reframe that fear, try not to catastrophize it. So questions for those listeners.
Yes.
We'd love to hear what has been one of the biggest unknowns that you've faced, and if you're able to, let us know a couple of those steps that helped you move forwards with that fear.
Yes. I would love to know if other people have other strategies.
Yeah.
So, you know, for all of you who, even if you are testing, they don't have to be tested strategies, but they could just be some inspirational points that we can try and throw into our daily life and say, right, okay, let's see if this works. But I'm curious to see what other people are doing, because I'm always interested in trying different ways of overcoming my fears, especially fear of lizards. So if anyone has any suggestions, let me know. I'm more than happy to try.
And as always, you can reach out to us. What's our links, Beds? You always know them.
Yes. So come and find us on Instagram. Our handle is at @thestretchzone_podcast. You can also find us on Threads, because we're everywhere now, and of course on YouTube.
And our next podcast is going to be all about the power of relationships. And we've kind of tapped in a tiny little bit about that today, but not just relationships with others. It'll also be about our relationship with ourselves as well. Can't wait to see you then. Have a beautiful rest of your week, Feds, and you too.
You too. You too. Bye, guys. Wrapping up today's episode, remember, you don't have to face change alone.
If you'd like to connect or learn more about working with us individually, reach out to us through our Instagram account at @thestretchzone_podcast, or find our emails in the footnotes to this episode. We're here to support you on your journey, each in your own way.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of The Stretch Zone. If today's discussion resonated with you, remember to subscribe, leave a review, and share the episode with anyone who might benefit. Until next time, keep stretching beyond your comfort zone.